So personally, I think this is kind of a good question. I would love to see Milei go to a hard currency. I think that he is moving towards dollarization, is what it seems like. That's just going to prop up the dollar. I mean, if you guys have followed me for any length of time at all, if you've seen any of my work, I am not a fan of continually propping up the dollar, because all that's doing is it's just making everybody poorer. Particularly the working class are the ones that are becoming poorer. No matter how many dollars they make, they'll just keep making dollars, and they will keep going backward. And companies will just continue to screw them. Governments will continue to screw them. This is just how it works. The dollar is a nightmare of a currency that absolutely has to be destroyed. It is, man. I mean, there's diseases out there that are better than the dollar. The dollar is actually probably the number one chief disease that is responsible for the most death and destruction that we've probably seen in the modern era. It is that bad. So, but I think that Milei is actually just moving towards, more dollarization as opposed to actual hard currency. I think any country that tries to do truly hard currency, and this includes El Salvador. El Salvador is still dollarized. They are still, in fact, borrowing dollars to prop up all of their stuff, to build all those jails and have all these prisoners and blah, 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 blah. I know they're trying to do the whole orange internet money, hard currency thing, but it's hard currency only on the surface. It's not when you really get down to it. They are still very much borrowing dollars. They are still very much in the game with the IMF and World Bank and what have you. They're still doing that. And most countries, most people cannot handle a hard currency environment. They just can't. Keep this in mind. And I'm not talking to you specifically, but I mean, just anybody watching this, keep this in mind. This is very important you understand this. Anybody who works, anybody who wakes up and then goes and does some kind of work that society actually needs, right? They're not afraid of hard currency. They will never be afraid of hard currency. In fact, for those people, their lifestyle will go through the fucking roof. They will have lifestyle. They will have all the nice cars. They will have the nice houses. They will have all of this. Okay, this is the first, the last shall be first shall be last type speech. Okay, even though I'm an atheist, but I mean, you have to understand, Christ was actually a very good economist. He doesn't get any credit for that, but he was an excellent economist. And yes, the people who do all the goddamn work in a hard currency environment eventually become the richest people. And governments and bankers and all, dude, they do not want that, because they don't want to have to do any of the actual physical work, and they certainly don't want to pay people to do all this work. So most of these countries, what they're going to do is if everybody decides to universally say, we're not working, we're not going to burn any calories for any of this, anything less than hard currency, they will replace you. They will straight replace you with people who will. Because that's just how it works, right? I mean, put yourself in the position of one of these crazy psychotic cops, right? All these, because the country's slowly turning into where they're just hiring the most psychotic people they can find. And think about it. You'll do anything to keep your pension and your luxuries and so forth. So there's nothing you won't enforce, right? There's still a few guys out there who won't enforce certain things, but that's going away too. Eventually, they'll be able to bring back prima nocta. All but, and police will enforce that shit. Just don't kid yourselves. I'm very much a realist. Don't kid yourselves. When it comes to the contest between morality versus, resources will always win every single time, right? I'm saying this as someone who is not a moral philosopher. I'm telling you this just objectively, scientifically. That's what will end up happening. People will do that. And countries, they need to have endless amounts of largesse to deal with all the problems that countries have, because eventually, sooner or later, someone says, what do we do about all these poor people? And then eventually, rather than actually saying back to the people, what do you mean, what do we do with all these poor people? Are you incapable of helping these poor people? Why does it have to be a government program? Why does it, why aren't you doing something? They'll never do that, because that puts it back on people. And of course, that doesn't get you reelected. As soon as you dump it back on the people and say, dude, what the hell? Why can't you help out the poor people? What's wrong with you? Why does it have to be a government program? Well, you're not going to get reelected if you said that. That's not going to be popular. You're just not going to get reelected. And unless the people there truly understand that, yeah, it is kind of your responsibility to deal with these things. But again, remember, ownership implies responsibility, and if you take away ownership, then people are not responsible. That is just reality. And I realize it sounds like I'm dancing on the issue. I'm really not. I'm actually answering your question. Do I think that Milei is going to do any of this? No, I don't. I think he's going to continue dollarizing. I would love to see a country go to full-on hard currency, but I think that they would immediately lose their most favored nation status with the U.S. I think they would be branded a blank orist state. Apparently you can't say the T word on TikTok for whatever reason, but they would be immediately branded an enemy of the U.S. They'd be relegated to North Korea and Iran as soon as they did it. I mean, look at every country that has ever really tried to have their own currency and decouple from the dollar. Look what happens to them. I mean, we know historically, recent history actually, stuff with Gaddafi and so on. So, yeah, I mean, do I think it's good what he's doing? Yeah, I think that it's working for now, and I think it's certainly better than what the people had. But do I think it's going to last very long? No, it's just propping the dollar up. Once again, it's just more and more people who keep playing the dollar game. It just props it up and it keeps it going. And the people who decide they don't want dollars any longer, they're going to be cast aside, and they'll replace you with people who will take dollars. Because that's the idea of even though you're constantly being ripped off, even though you will work very, very, very hard your whole life to accumulate dollars, and then you'll have to go to the casino, which is the stock market, and you'll have to gamble all of your dollars, and hopefully they keep the Ponzi scheme going long enough to where you can pull enough money out to possibly retire in your late 80s or something like that. I don't know. That's the plan. Even though retirement, again, I have a different view of retirement, so I'm not really the guy to talk to about that. But yeah, I mean, do I think ultimately what he's doing is good? Probably. Do I think that it's going to work long term? Not if it's dollarized. I mean, but if they can actually go to hard currency, it would be miraculous. Nothing short of miraculous.